Well,
Well,
happy Tuesday. It's time again for another rare conversation with myself, Toy and Jalen, and
wrong way. Danielle Jalen.
I'm so used to going the other way. For those of you guys who are joining us live via YouTube or even Twitter or Facebook group live, welcome to call. This happens every Tuesday, 12:01 to 12:31, and it's just an opportunity to go ahead and stop for a moment, reflect, to expect, to grow. And if you're just joining us, we've been going for the last 3 weeks on regaining focus. It's now quarter 3. The year is not, even though I sometimes feel that we're already halfway through the year, and just how my mind is. In our last 2 sessions, we talked about identifying the big picture. I believe everyone has goals and dreams and aspirations that they want to move towards in their life. However, though, it's easy for life to, what do they say, Daniil, to distract us, to us to fall into demands of life. And we talked about writing down 101 ideas and themes and focuses and things you want to achieve and things you want to experience, ways you want to grow. And the second part of that assignment was to whittle 101 down to five areas to focus, the Warren Buffett rule. So this week we're going to talk about assessing your focus. You came up with your big picture idea. You may not know how you're getting there, but know what you want. Why is that so important, Neil?
It helps give you something to work towards, like a goal of a smaller handful of things to be able to accomplish to stay focused on versus trying to figure out how you're going to accomplish all 101 things that you wrote down at one time. Because that's what we feel like we need to do is when we have something we want to work on, we want to do it all right now. So this helps to dial that focus in just a little bit more onto that smaller handful of things.
Right. And I think too, I mean, at least from the people that I know have already completed the workbook. Neil, can you go ahead and show the workbook real quick? Do you have that near you? That was the workbook we did put together. If you've not received your copy of the workbook, please make sure to message us, and we'll get you a copy of it. Um, some of the things that people have told me since they've gone through it, they're like, one, it was harder than they thought, right? Like, oh, I can come up with 101 things. But you recognize where you're at in terms of your thinking. You know, are you maybe in a rut and didn't realize you were in a rut? Was logic coming in too often in doing it? If so, you might be in a rut. Because the goal is when you're doing this one-on-one is like, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? Small, big, medium size, and whatnot. And then we go down to the five. So this all leads us to step two, and that's assessing. We're going to move from the big picture today because we've established that and transition to the ins and outs of your focus. Because again, this is talking about regaining your focus. So I want everyone who's watching to begin to think about your current process and how you go about things. Think about how you focus on tasks, how you tackle new assignments, how long you can work on something without getting distracted. How often does that happen? We're working on something to get distracted. Um, so what are some signs would you say? Let's start with y- signs that you're you are focused versus signs that you're not focused. What are some signs for you, Daniil, to let you know that you're focused in terms of, moving towards a goal, something that you're actually committed to doing?
I think I'm more focused and alert to that during the day. Like I don't have a problem setting goals and finding ways to like get them done. Um, and then also like as I'm working on goals, it's easier to like be able to break them down and work on small chunks at a time. And then that way, if I do need to take a break after I hit that like one milestone in what I'm doing, it's just a quick refresh and I can keep going.
Yeah. Some of the signs that I've learned for myself that I'm not focused is that was when my mind isn't, well, when I find my mind wandering and drifting to another topic, and I also daydream often, right? And I don't know why people do that. Like when you're not focused, why do you think people like daydream and have their mind wander a lot?
I guess I don't know. Like, I think it's just easy to like if you don't have a plan to just be like, oh, this would be nice to do right now. Oh, maybe I should work on this instead, because you don't have that plan of attack for your day.
Yeah, another thing that I end up doing is I just pick up my phone and I get distracted by it quickly. Like, I don't sometimes it's like I feel like, oh, I gotta go on the phone. And I used to be really bad at it. Before using screen time or focus time on my iPhone, um, before activating that, I should say. There's weeks in which I was like, 24 or 30 some hours on my phone. I'm like, well, no wonder why I didn't get anything done. And now I look at, oh, you're on the phone for 6 hours in the week or 7 hours in the week. I'm like, well, that's better because I do a lot of phone calls. Still not exactly where I want to be at. It was funny. Yesterday, our son Ezekiel, he's like, Dad, like, how do you get a notification that you've reached your time limit on GroupMe? And for those of you guys who don't know what GroupMe is, it's a group messaging app. I'm like, oh, because I only have that dialed in for 5 minutes a day. That's my amount of time that I can be on it. Um, I think another sign that you're not focused is that you can't keep track of your progress. You you don't measure it, you know where you've been. And I think for me, at least for example, for meal planning, is like when I don't keep track of what I'm eating or my workouts, I realized that I'm not really focused on achieving that goal. Like when I'm measuring everything, measuring things out even, I'm that tells me I'm committed to it. Like, how about you, like in terms of keeping track of your progress? Do you see that's a sign that you're not focused as well?
Yeah, I think it becomes something that's not important again. If you're able to keep track of it or to keep it in front of you or be mindful of it and intentional, that leads to more focus.
Right. And I think either if you're showing signs that you are focused or you're not focused, it's okay, right? I mean, if you're showing signs of focus, congratulations for back, you go to the right path. And if you get distracted, it's okay because that's fixable too. But I think that assessing your focus is a key part of your success because it's about time, right? Time is the only non-renewable source that we have. And would you agree, Danielle, that you can always improve your attention?
Oh yeah, I think you can always find ways to be more intentional with the time that you have and where you're focusing that time on.
Yeah. That's why I like doing quarterly reviews. The last 2 days I've been doing quarterly reviews with people that I work with. And it's just been like very eye-opening to hear what their takeaways were from doing a quarterly review, right? Because they were assessing where they were spending their time. They're assessing the results of the time that they spent. So I think there's a handful of steps which we're going to share here today that you can actually take and what we've learned um, from to assess. And the first one is stop and listen. Begin by listening to yourself. And what do I mean by that? Being in tune with your thoughts, goals, ideas, and questions. Um, what would be some other areas in terms of just listening to your thoughts and goals that you can actually stop and listen to?
I think it's important to like listen to your body. Like, are you tired? Like, what are you like finding yourself like struggling in the middle of the day? And really just like looking like, do I need to relook at the amount of time that I'm sleeping? Do I need to take a few more moments of just maybe um, a reset in the middle of the day to regain that focus and that energy again. I think that our bodies tell us a lot when we're going through it throughout the day, like how we're feeling. Do we need to eat? Do we need more water? Do we need just to get up and move around a little bit more? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, because I think too is that if you don't listen to your body, your body will shut down. Your body will say, "Oh, dude, like, psh, You need to rest, you need to reset, you need to eat better, and I always can tell when it's about to happen. So for me, is this when I'm going hard and I'm not being intentional with my focus, I'll slowly start to not eat well. I'll eat more excessively, and then I won't sleep as much. And then before you know it, it's like I'm out for the count. One, two, three. I am done. 'Cause my body says, dude, like you gotta stop it and listen for a moment. I think too is important to make a note of things, right? In terms of how you're feeling. Um, the second way in terms of assessing your focus is trying something new. And this next one is like a stage of experimentation. Um, think of listening to yourself as a way to isolate all variables and unknowns. All right. So you're able to and by doing this, I think you're able to capture the essence of you, your work ethic, what works for you and what doesn't. So why would try something new help in regaining focus for you?
I think we need to continue to push ourselves out of our comfort zone to continue to grow. And so I think when we're trying something new, and being able to test those limits and those boundaries that we've set on ourselves, that it helps us realize that we're capable of doing more than what we're actually probably doing.
Yeah, this goes back to the old 40% rule. It's a Navy SEAL rule that says that, when you think you've given your all, you have 40% still more to give. And I think if you like, for example, you usually use simple lists, you can try like a project management tool or a tracker. Um, and I think there's some things we got to consider though too when we're trying something out new, right? It's important you just don't try something just to try something. It should be something that you genuinely believe will have a positive impact on your focus habits. So, what would be an idea of something that you're going to be trying new to really dial in your focus?
For me, not necessarily trying something, I guess, significantly new, but like just one of my five things is to be able to get up in the morning at 4:45 and be able to go through my day without feeling like I'm losing steam and energy. So like maybe looking at, instead of waiting to eat until 10 o'clock, like that's like 5 hours of my day already. So, like, really looking at, like, maybe needing to fuel earlier in the morning versus waiting, longer for that. So, just working with, my eating schedule a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think too is like when eating schedule, you got to like track it, right? My son and I were at the gym yesterday. They were talking about how is it Ramadan is going on right now.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's from Muslims, I believe, and they don't eat from sunrise to sundown. And they say some people release a ton of weight. Some people gain weight because after sundown, like they like just like
Mhm.
eat all these kinds of foods and stuff like that. Um, for me, it's again like a goal for me is again that quality time stuff. Like I enjoy having quality time with my family, and so I have a goals for the next 3 months. Like one of you and I are going on our anniversary trip for two. That's 10 days. It's gonna be fantastic. But also find those other little moments to um, really connect. I'll give you an example. So when Ezekiel and I come back from volleyball practice, there's been times where I'm catching up on some work things, right? And I realize he's going to be 16 years old in a couple weeks. That to really value that time even more. And so I've literally been putting the phone down more and putting it away and just talking or just sitting there in silence even too. It's funny because Danielle and I sometimes I'll call her and we'll just be on speaker and we're not really talking. So that's something new for me. Um, what about what's another area? One of your other areas of focus? Your five.
My 5 was to work on being debt free. Like, I kind of looked at all the things I wrote down, and I think they all kind of fall into like 5 categories that um, I wrote down to focus on, because I think without hitting those 5 things, like, none of those other things are gonna be able to even happen. So, like, working on becoming, debt free and paying off our debt, and what that allows us to do then is to kinda hit some of those other things that we're looking at
Mhm.
doing. But to be able to do that, really focusing on a weekly food budget, um, and especially now with prices being as much as they are, and with all the things going on, like, just really making sure that we're dialing in, like, what are we eating in a week, and making sure that I'm not buying more than that, and being wasteful of some sorts, or having to make several trips to the store, because sometimes several trips lead to many different items that get thrown in the cart that don't need to be there. And so just really like dialing in that as far as like weekly to help um, working towards the becoming debt free.
Right. And I think the third way to really, in terms of assessing things is you gotta learn from your failures. I mean, actually, let's not even call it failure. Let's call it learn from like, you either win or you learn, right? Because there's no really like failures unless you stop. And I think sometimes is what happens to people is that if you don't succeed with a particular approach, um, we fret about it. We beat ourselves up over it. I think sometimes we just gotta chalk it up and say, you know what? We apply that lesson down the road. So, what are some ways that you've learned to go ahead and learn from failures
I
personally?
just I think, well, one, I think the timing of what that failure was. Like, was it something that was extremely urgent that I was needing to work on, or was it something that isn't that important right now and could have been waited on to work on something else? It just being able to really understand, like, okay, this is what my goal was, why, like, what happened in that time that distracted me from reaching that, and then allowing just a space to like think about, like, what happened, what was I feeling, why, what actions was I taking and not taking, how did I have my days planned out, did I have my day planned out, and just really looking at things that I can hone up on and dial in to be more focused in working towards that.
Yeah. For me, it's like literally journaling. Back to that. I mean, I think there are I think sometimes it's so easy to just keep on moving forward and not taking a step back and go, okay, what really happened there? And I know sometimes it is hard to face the music, as I say. Like, crap, like I gotta own that in order to move forward from it. And I think that's a difficulty for a lot of people to like take ownership of something. Like, okay, you know what? I failed on that because of the fact that I may not put enough practice time in earlier. I might have not have prepared earlier. So for those of you guys that are watching, feel free to put in the comments. How do you learn from your failures? You know, over the next, handful of weeks here, we're gonna go over additional steps in terms of regaining your focus. And it sometimes may seem like a lot, especially if you've not done it before. And so I would just encourage you to answer these few questions. Number one, just simply what's gone well in the last week? Oh wow. If anyone tells me I don't know, you're just not taking the time and effort to think. Like I'm gonna let all you guys know if you ever work with me personally. If you just say I don't know on something that actually we know that happened, that means you're just not taking the to put the time to think about it. And it could be numerous reasons why. I just talk about, well, why don't I want to talk about it? Because it sucks. you know. I think that's the thing. Um, but those are three ways to go ahead and really assess where you're at. You know, stop and listen. Um, try something new. And I say that it's like, is this going to move you closer to your goal or further away from your goal? I think that's an important thing. And number three, you got to learn from your failures. Um, you got to be able to move past it and make a note of it if it's not for you, whatever that may be. And it's okay. Like sometimes I think we hold on to things so hard that, you know, like, oh, we're a failure because I didn't do this, I couldn't do this. So what did you give it your all? Right? Did you really put your all out on it? Like when we look at your top five goals out there that you put down, I look at my top five goals. And would we want to put those five goals that were on a billboard for everyone to see and ask us about it? That's a question, right? And because it shows you your commitment to it. Like, okay, yeah, I want everyone to go ahead and ask me how I'm doing on that. Sometimes we're more accountable to others than we are to ourselves. And by the way, Danielle, I just gotta mention again, I love your hair today. Um, this was simple. And the additional thoughts would you say, Danielle, in terms of assessing where you're at?
I think really just looking at the things that you have written on your 101 list and really just looking at what are the five things from there that they all kind of have in common. Like they fall into one of the categories and really just focusing in on what that looks like. Is it um, like optimal health? Like under optimal health, you have certain little goals that you can work on each day: getting in a walk, eating properly, drinking enough water, working on getting out of debt. Like, we have goals to travel and to have different homes somewhere or build a new home. What am I doing today that's helping me get to that goal? And just really like, a, um, one of them is to be able to get up at 5:40 or 4:45 every morning. Start my day rested. And what does that mean? Like making sure that maybe if I need to take a 30-minute nap in the afternoon to finish out the evening with the family before I have to go to bed, or trying to get to bed a half hour earlier. Um, it's sometimes hard because our schedule goes late into the night. And so just being to recognize that, and what does then my next day look like, out what planning your day out, and really just like as much as you possibly can. Like obviously not every day is going to be perfect and you're not going to follow every single thing to the T, but like
Right,
what can I do to win the day? And if I missed it for that day, what can I do then to make sure that that doesn't happen a second day in a row?
right. I think that's important to remember because we can sometimes beat ourselves up because we missed that one day. And you gotta, I mean, this might be a drastic question to ask, and you've heard me ask this question: will anyone die or go to jail? Well, no. Okay, then we got to move on from it. We got to flush it and move on, and that way, and make that decision, like you said, to make sure that next day, um, you win the day. I love that. Win the day. It's so simple. Next week we're going to talk about the next step, and that's eliminate. Um, there's things that sometimes we just got to eliminate. And we're going to be talking about, how to schedule it out, how to schedule time for others, how to define and defy the culprit. Multitasking. You've read a book called Monotasking, and really to target your habits, and so that way you can work on the attitude, so you get the right mindset to go ahead and eliminate. If you found value in today's discussion, please make sure to share this or join the Rare Leader group on Facebook. Just do a search type in Rare Leaders. I am Tony Jalen with the wonderful, let's go that one, no, this way.
Danielle Jalen.
Again, we encourage you to be a rare leader, someone who's resourceful, adaptable, resilient, and willing to engage with others. Go ahead and be a rare leader and rise up. Onward and upwards until next time.